So much of the news over the last week has been dominated by the United States' fascist policy of trying to deport people who are pro-Palestinian. So the way that the United States is saying this is that they're saying that protesters who are against Israel or are pro-Palestinian solidarity are pro-Hamas, referring to the militant group that attacked Israel on October 7th. See, this is rhetoric that was normalized under the Biden administration. If you remember, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden referred to protests that were about ending the genocide in Palestine as pro-Hamas protests, which is what set into motion the Trump administration being able to do that, because that was normalized speech under the Democrats. So, of course, the Republicans are going to use the exact same language. Now, this is the most recent example. Rumeysa Ozturk. There's video footage of her just being randomly stopped by ICE officers, and the ICE officers are unmarked, not wearing anything that says ICE, and she's like, "Can I call the police?" And they're like, "We are the police," and they grabbed her and they kidnapped her, basically, and no one knew where she was for the longest time until eventually it was announced that she was in Louisiana. Now, frankly, just kidnapping people for protesting against a foreign nation, they're not even protesting the United States, they're protesting a foreign nation within the United States, and they're being locked up for it. They're being thrown into jails, they're being put into for-profit prisons. Mahmoud Khalil was last week, so obviously not the week, but maybe it was 3 weeks ago, actually. I think I made a video on this. He was a negotiator for the Columbia students and trying to bargain with officials at Columbia, and Columbia threw him under the bus. Columbia was basically like, "We don't care that this man has been kidnapped. We don't care that this man's been kidnapped from his home. We don't care that he's illegally here. We're glad that he's been kidnapped." And again, it is these big corporations, because let's be honest, universities, particularly in the United States, are corporations. They are in cahoots with the US government because it ensures their funding, it ensures their money. They're going to get funding from the government, and they're also going to get money from students. I doubt many people will stop going to these universities. I have seen instances. I know there's one young lady on TikTok who was like, "I got accepted into Columbia's journalism school. I'm not going to go because of what Columbia has done." And rightfully so. Why should you give them your hard-earned money? And in the United States particularly so. That student loan debt doesn't get forgiven in the United States, and it is huge. Why would you go into debt to go to a university that is more than happy to lock you up for trying to be against the brutal mass slaughter of brown people? It's unforgivable behavior. AP, I'm not paying you. Yoon Se-chung, this is another one that was quite egregious. I don't think this one made as much news because very swiftly a judge intervened. For some of the other ones, a judge hasn't quite intervened yet. I know one has for Mahmoud Khalil, I think, or at least they've said something. But Yoon Se-chung is a Korean child. Well, she was born in Korea and moved to the United States, legal resident, full residency, and they kidnapped her as well and were like, "We're going to deport you to Korea." And then a judge had to come in and be like, "Why?" Engaged in concerning... The Department of Homeland Security says engaged in concerning conduct. She went to a protest. She was in a sit-in. And then a judge ordered immigration agents to not detain her whilst a legal challenge was pending. So then it's not even that she is free to go. It's while she's putting together her legal defense, the judge has said you can't keep her locked up, which frankly makes sense. But again, this isn't even a brown person. This is someone of Korean descent who is, she was born in Korea, I suppose, who is being locked up and being, treated as othered. This list goes on and on. I thought, it just keeps going. But those are like the four. I'll put the link to this down below so you can go into more detail with these other students. But honestly, it's just straight fascism. And I know the United States has always been a fascist nation, like through and through from its inception. They inspired all of the fascist nations in Europe. They've inspired the ones outside of Europe as well. You know, India probably takes a big playbook from the United States and Israel at the moment. And all of this is to defend Israel, to defend their colony. And it tells you how closely linked the two are. You know, oftentimes people, I think, make the mistake of saying Israel controls the United States. And that's, in my opinion, and from my reading and my research, that's not the case. It's the other way around. I get where people get it from. You get it from, like, the fact that the United States is doing what they're doing right now, that they will protect Israel, and you know, all of these people get money from Israel as well. But I've described it this way in another video. I'll link it here somewhere if I can. I'll link it above. But basically, the United States has Israel as their colony. US politicians make money through Israel. They invest in Israeli companies. They invest in Israeli lobbies. The money is tax money from the US that then goes to Israel for spending, and particularly spending on military equipment. And then, you know, those military companies will then lobby the very politicians who made it so Israel could get the weapons. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's just a circle going round and round of them just giving each other money. It's genuinely, like, horrifying how absurd this entire thing is, and how, like, backwards it is that these politicians get away with that in what is meant to be a democratic nation. But that's why they're cracking down on these protesters. They're trying to basically make an example of them. They're trying to make it so they don't hit that 3.5% of the population that are protesting, because and I'm not sure, I'm a bit iffy on the person who's written this assumption, but there is the study saying that you need 3.5% of the population to protest against the government for there to be change, for the government to be overthrown. You know, the person who wrote that is very anti, let's say, direct action. So I'm not 100% sure on that. But nevertheless, that's the right word. Nevertheless, they're trying to stop reaching that threshold, or getting anywhere near that 3.5% threshold. And they're doing it through fear. The Trump administration did it through... Sorry, the Biden administration did it through, you know, like the carrot. They would be like, oh no, here's a little something that we're doing, guys. And the Trump administration's using the stick. I was actually going to look at more articles, but this article's actually very good, and it goes through different people who are suffering. But, you know, if you're in the US, get involved in, you know, bail drives for these people, get involved in protests, get involved in lobbying your elected officials, even though that rarely works. The elected officials thing should be at the very bottom of your list of things to do. You know, get involved in spreading the message, telling people about what these people are going through, because that's how you're going to get support for them. You know, again, financially, if you can support them, do that. If not, support them with your words, your social pages. Really, that's also a pretty low priority compared to the other ones, but do that as well, because you've got this administration for 3 to 4 more years. They're only going to get worse, and they're only going to get more fascist. So keep going, keep fighting, and those of us outside the United States will do our best to help you.